Music was created to bring glory to God first and foremost. Now, I believe that, yes, all glory can be brought to God through all forms of creativity, but first and foremost, it is to bring glory to God. I find the enemy will always try and make your schedule busy, and the first thing that he'll try and whisper in your ear is you don't have time to serve.
Yeah.
And you stop serving or you stop attending. And when you stop attending, everything goes wrong.
Hey, welcome to this episode of the God Seeker Podcast. So great to have you today. We have a very special episode for you today. You're going to love Danny Joseph. He's here. In a few minutes, I'm going to tell you just a little bit about him. But look, thank you for joining us. Our dream, our heart, our vision really is to have the kind of conversation that God can dig and bring the gold out. And so today is not going to be any exception to that. It's going to be a great, great moment for us. I always start the same way, Danny. I always start with a little bit of a bio.
Sure.
And so you are a singer, songwriter, guitar player, and a producer.
Yes, sir.
Right? You have a solo career under Danny Joseph.
Yes.
And you've been writing and producing music since you were 13 years old.
Yes.
Wow. You've produced records, mixed everything in your own home studio, and so that's what you do. You're passionate about soul music, blues music,
soul, blues, country,
and
rock
country.
And roll.
That's what I love hearing that.
Yeah, Americana.
Yeah,
kind of. Yeah.
You underwent life-altering surgery back in February last year to remove your colon.
Yep.
Due to Crohn's disease, and during that recovery, you set up a recording space in your spare bedroom. You taught yourself how to use the equipment, and you discovered that making music was this real source of healing.
Definitely, yeah.
You're a husband to Joanna.
Yep.
9 years.
9 years.
You got kids.
Yep.
Your father to Kian, who's 6. Killian, who's 3.
Yep.
And Ava.
Yep.
Yeah, I bet Ava's...
She's 1. Yep.
Yeah, she's 1 year old. You're originally from London, England, but you moved here in 2015 after you met Joanna at a church conference.
Yes.
That worked out good.
It did.
Fantastic.
Best conference I ever went to.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Studied law at City University of London, and before you pursued a career in music. You became a U.S. citizen.
Yep.
Hallelujah. In
Amen.
2021.
Yep, I'm American now.
Yeah, in 6 years. It only took 6 years, so that's good. And you've been a worship leader here in Dallas for Fellowship Church and Arlington Baptist University, and been a guest worship leader, I'm sure, different places around the country. What's so today we can't wait to hear about really is that at the end of 2024, you were a finalist in The Voice.
Right.
And you had your coach was Reba McIntyre, but you also met there Snoop Dogg.
Yep.
I bet that was great.
It was
Michael
great.
Bublé.
Yep.
And Gwen Stefani.
Yep.
And you were one of those guys that got all 4 chairs to turn when you sang.
Right.
Pretty amazing. You joined Team Reba, and you get to sing and work with Reba McIntyre, and actually played with Sting.
Yep.
Which is an amazing thing, huh?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we're glad to have you. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. I know you got lots of things going on, and for you to be with us is really special.
Thanks for
and
having
I'm
me.
very, very, very grateful for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit just about your, I've hit some of the high spots, but really kind of go back to your early days, your childhood, how you were reared, where you were reared. What I know you were in the church.
Yep.
And so, which is kind of rare for England, right? I mean, church is not.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it's become more and more secular over the years, and a lot of churches are dying over there, which is sad. But still, there are a lot of believers. There's still a lot of, strong churches that are growing and thriving, but at the same time, a lot of them that are, not growing, not thriving anymore. Very different to here, where I feel, I've heard we're in the buckle of the Bible Belt, in a sense. So it's definitely different in that sense.
It's a culture shock, really, isn't it?
It is. It's very different. We speak the same language, but it's. I feel like the British probably have more in common with like the French and Germans now than they do with the Americans in some ways. It's the same language, but it's very different.
Yeah, two great people separated by a common language. Right. Yeah. So you grew up in that atmosphere. Right. Tell me about your parents, your family, your siblings.
Yeah, I know. I'm an only child. My parents emigrated to the UK from Iran in the 1970s. My dad
Persian.
Persian, that's it. So my dad came in 1973. My mom came in 1976. And initially, a lot of the Iranians back then came to study, and some of them actually came to the U.S. We have some family members that emigrated here, like my aunts and uncles, some in other places in Europe. My parents came to the U.K., and they stayed. They decided to stay, and they didn't have any belief or any faith in anything at that moment in time. But my mother was very unwell with, I don't know what the word is. It's hydrocephalus, I think. It's some kind of buildup of fluid on the brain. This is in the 70s, 80s, before I was born, and she was in and out of hospital. So they would, do major surgery on her with shunts to try and drain this fluid out. And back then there wasn't, it was touch and go. I think she had 50 surgeries, and even up till the time I was born. And she was listening to Billy Graham on the radio. There was a Dutch radio station in the hospital, and that's where she started to first hear the gospel. And I think it was in probably just before I was born, they went to listen to Billy Graham in person, my parents. My mom said to my dad, "We've got to go." And there was no room, but they let him in. They sat on the floor. There were people sitting on the floor in an auditorium in London. Hopefully I'm explaining the story accurately.
Yeah.
I'm sure if they listen, they're like, "You missed out this, you missed out that." But this is the best I remember.
Yeah.
And they gave their lives to Jesus there and then. And, consequently, I was brought up in the church. I grew up in a place called High Barnet, which is North London, pretty much on the border. And as long as I can remember, went to church, was always involved in church. And when I was about, I think 6, my parents started to get involved with the Iranian church in London. So there's a church, and it's still going strong today. And my dad was a worship leader there, because my dad played guitar. So that was my first introduction to music, and playing guitar while he was leading the worship. He bought me a little guitar, and I'd kind of noodle around on it, trying to learn stuff and pick up little melodies and stuff. So that was my first introduction to worship. And then later on, we went to an English church, which was, again, in North London, and this had a really good youth group, a good youth ministry, and I was about 13 at the time. So I was involved there, again, playing in the band, playing guitar in the band, probably from the age of 13 to about 23, and then I, got involved with another church, and which led me to Fellowship Church in Dallas, which then led me here.
Yeah.
So kind of a long story cut short.
Yeah.
But yeah, grown up in church my whole life. But it was when I was 16 that I actually got baptized, because I think that was for me when I actually realized what it meant to be a Christ follower, where it was not just a cultural thing, or we just go to church on Sunday, but an actual spiritual, life change, understanding, a heart understanding versus just the head. And, being involved with church ever since. We had there was a church plant going on in East London in 2013, which some of my friends from the church I was going to at the time encouraged me to get involved in. So I'm living in North London, this is East London, so you're talking about an hour and a half on public transport to get there. It's a long way, because the way London's designed, driving there would be even worse. So you need to get a train into central London and all the way out to the east. And I loved it. It was just a lot of fun. And that church was Fellowship Church. Had never heard of it before, but I got involved. And my first role there was doing the prompters for the worship team. Yeah. So they had me kind of clicking the buttons, doing the thing. And then I think the following week, somebody mentioned that I was a musician. So they got me involved with the worship team there. And I didn't look back, and it was I was in between jobs, 2013, leaving one job, and I had a gap when there was no job. And I got a phone call from one of the pastors there who said, we have this conference called C3. Would you like to come? And, obviously, I would have not been able to come had I had a job, because typically in England we get 4 weeks vacation. Most people don't take February off. Right. It's the
most
summer.
Most times August, right?
Right, August, June, July, August, that kind of time. So, I was like, they had a free ticket, a spare ticket. So I came, not really expecting anything other than being at a great conference and hearing some great messages and, great worship, and ultimately going back to London to start this new job, which was real estate. It was the property industry over there. And that's where I met my now wife. So that would have been 11 years ago, over 11 years ago at a C3 conference. We met, and she worked at the church. She still does. Yeah. And it was just a long distance relationship. Yeah. And
I want to hear about that, but I want to go back to the Iranian church. Was that more of a Western style church or more of an Eastern style church?
I'd say it was a part of the Assemblies of God. So all of the, the Iranian churches, I believe, come from that denomination and background. So it was, very charismatic. You'd have, they'd preach the message in English and Farsi. So you'd have, if the guy speaking was speaking in English, they translate it, or vice versa. And it was very charismatic, very long kind of services that, you don't know when it starts and when it ends. Right. So that was the first experience I had kind of being in the worship. And it was, it was a lot of fun, but very charismatic, a lot of people praying in tongues and stuff like that. And, I grew up around very kind of Pentecostal kind of worship. So, Yeah,
well, the reason I ask is that, from all accounts, there's a revival going on in Iran.
Yes, yeah.
Like millions of people are coming to Christ, and they're seeing very supernatural things happen.
Very true,
and from raising people from the dead.
Yep.
Do you know firsthand about any of those things?
Yeah, I don't know firsthand about individual stories, but I've known for a long time that it's, there's definitely been a revival going on for a long time, and they say it's actually one of the fastest growing underground churches in the world. And I think it's just something inherent in their culture, where a lot of them are seeking, where they realize the religion that has been forced upon them is not something that is of God or not right, and a lot of them are seeking for the truth. And that's what my parents were, and a lot of them are seeking for the truth. And it says, seek and you'll find. And I believe when we pray that prayer, God, reveal yourself to me, he does.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are praying that prayer, and that is what's happening. They're finding Christ. And, there's a lot of churches, underground churches, developing there. And, I definitely believe, one day that place will be free. And
I do, too.
Yeah, and,
I think it's inevitable now. I think once that ball starts to roll, it'll pick up speed.
Definitely, yeah. And it's, you have a lot of believers, but on the other side, a lot of people who are atheists there as well, because of the notion of God that has been forced upon them, which is not right, that they've, gone the other way, but at the same time, a lot of believers too.
Back in the late 1989, early 1990, the Iron Curtain fell.
Yeah.
And I spent quite a bit of time in Romania. And I remember talking to one of the old Pentecostal preachers that I met there. He was probably in his 80s.
Yeah.
And he was, far had been retired. And I said to him, aren't you excited about this new freedom that's come to your country? And he said, yes, I am excited. But on the other hand, he said, I have a fear.
Right.
The fear is that once the persecution stops, people will begin to do what's right in their own eyes.
Yes.
And that struck me. I've never been the same since I heard that. Because it's something about the persecution. Nobody wants that for anybody, right?
No.
But it's something about that brings Christianity into clarity.
Yeah.
And there is no gray space. You're either born again, filled with the Holy Spirit, or you're not.
Right.
And to see really, what happened in Romania. I mean, we would go out and preach on the, in the big malls and the big, and I'll say out malls. I mean the outdoor city centers and so forth. Hundreds of people would come.
Yeah.
And just simple presentation of the gospel, they begin to weep and cry and, fall to their knees. I mean, just the presence of the Lord would come outside like that.
Yeah.
But within 3 or 4 years, it was illegal to even preach there.
Right.
And if you got a place to preach in a decent-sized city or whatever, people, it was just nonchalant. People were coming and going.
Yeah.
And so a country that had been so red hot for the things of God really cooled down when the Western influence came.
Interesting.
And the freedom came. And I don't know why I thought of that, but I just thought, there's something that God does when people are being persecuted.
Right, yeah.
And in those moments, as bad as it is on the outside, it's really good
Right.
on the inside. I don't want that myself. I don't wish that for you or anyone else.
Yeah.
But there is something to that, I think.
I think it kind of goes back to free will when people are given a choice of freedom in a Western sense. Will they still cling to their faith and hold to their faith, or will they choose those freedoms that have been given to them?
Yeah.
And I think, when people are persecuted, those freedoms are not there. And the only thing you have is your faith, which is the true freedom.
Yeah.
So I think there's probably, some truth to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And growing up, in the church and being involved in several different types of churches.
Right.
How did all that prepare you for where you are today? Yes.
Yeah, I mean, for me, my faith is the most important thing in my life. Nothing is possible without God. And, I wouldn't have met my wife. I wouldn't have had the family I have had. Wouldn't have had the amazing friends I have if it wasn't for the church and through the church. So, for me, being part of the church is the most important thing because I noticed when you stop serving, you're less likely to attend. Mm-hmm. When you stop attending, well, slowly, you can revert back to the life you had before you were a Christ follower, or your faith is not as you say, hot. So for me, the importance of the church is not only attending, but is actually being involved.
Yeah.
And, and that's what I love about serving, because it kind of, in a way, forces you to sit there and be there and listen. Mm-hmm. And I find the enemy will always try and make your schedule busy. Mm-hmm. And the first thing that he'll try and whisper in your ear is you don't have time to serve.
Yeah.
And you stop serving or you stop attending.
That's
and when you stop attending, everything goes wrong, I find, because you're not...
that entitlement comes in. I've served enough, and I need a little break.
Right.
And that little break turns into a long break, and that long break turns into we come now 3 or 4 times a year.
And I know, a lot of churches have the online, you can watch it online, which is fine as a tool, but, I wouldn't make a habit of that becoming the norm, because I think it's very difficult to grow in your faith in solitude for an extended period of time. I think I believe you need others around you who are, iron sharpens iron, and I need to be putting my faith into practice. And, that's only possible if I'm serving. It's kind of like going to the gym and just watching people work out. It's not going to work. So it's, it takes discipline, and going to the gym takes discipline. Well, serving takes discipline too, but that discipline is imperative for your spiritual health. Right. So to go back to your question, for me, the church, it constantly prepares you for everything, because, I wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for that. Yeah. I wouldn't be in this country if it wasn't for the church. I wouldn't have met my wife if it wasn't for the church. And who knows where I would have been if it wasn't for the church. And
Cameron and I were talking just before the podcast, before us getting together today. And we're just talking about how many worship leaders or people on The Voice, would come out and say, I started singing when I was in church. Right. My mom and dad took me to church, and that's where I started playing. Yeah. Tons of them. Yeah. And I think you had that experience when I want to talk to you about that. Yeah. But we were just saying that the church is such a growing ground for creatives. Yep. If you have a gift, a heart, a passion to sing, there's a place for you to serve here. Yeah. To serve, to lead, to speak, to write. Yeah. And the church is such a training ground for all that, and so many successful artists and really business people and people in government all had their start in the church. Yes. And so it's kind of cool to see, even in Britain, same thing, right?
Definitely, yeah.
Did you have a born-again experience as a kid, or did you just kind of...
Yeah, I think, for me, it was obviously being brought up in the faith, that's all you've ever known. But for me, when I was 16 years old, that's when the actual, as you say, an experience of this is actually, not just a head relationship, head knowledge, but a heart change thing for me. And that's when I was like, okay, this, now I understand what it means to be truly baptized. Because, probably just like here, there are a lot of nominal believers that, they will say they're Christian and they attend, but there is not really that heart transformation. It's a more cultural thing. So it was, you can't have that unless you really encounter the Holy Spirit. Right. But I think it starts with you. You know, it's a desire and a choice that I want a relationship with Jesus.
Yeah.
But what does that mean? Well, you know, it's actually changing my life from the inside, not just a knowledge of God. You know.
Yeah. Somehow you have to. You know, I want more. I'm not satisfied.
Right.
I mean, if I'm going to come to church, I want it to be real, authentic, meaningful to me. I don't want to just check the box.
Sure.
And I think that's where a lot of young people make a departure from the church, because they want it to be authentic.
Yeah.
They don't want to be check-the-box people, so they leave the church.
Right.
But the other side of the coin is, I'm going to be authentic.
Yeah.
I am not going to be a check-the-box person. I'm going to get in here and serve, and I'm going to seek God till I find Him.
Yeah.
And that's what I find in so many people that we have conversations with here, is that somehow, some way, you got motivated to seek God and to be a God pleaser. And a God seeker, rather than just hey, it's a gig for me.
Sure.
Particularly among musicians and singers.
Yes.
It becomes a gig.
It does. Yeah.
If you're not careful. But it's the same way for pastors. Leaders. It's just a gig. I have to get a message every week, and it's a gig.
Yeah.
And when it gets like that, it's just that's not a good place to be.
No.
Yeah. You know, Jesus said, "Look, I would rather you be cold, than
lukewarm.
Than lukewarm."
Yeah.
And you know, lukewarm is just the temperature of the room.
Right.
And so not a lot, but many believers, in quotations, you know, they're really the temperature of the world.
Sure.
And I'm praying and believing that we can reach this coming up generation with a heart to seek God. And already seeing things happen. College campuses, amazing things are happening.
Right.
And I'm sure you're kind of in that for sure.
Sure.
Before I leave this whole subject, I want to ask you one other question that occurred to me. Do you have any kind of desire to go to Iran?
I think, you know, for me, if the situation changes there, I would love to, but not really. I mean, you know, my parents have been in the UK for 50 plus years, so it's whether you like it or not, you become British.
Yeah,
you know, I've been here 10 years. I'm sure in another 40 years. I'm a
straight up Texan.
Straight up Texan, right? It's even me being here 10 years. This is home. And when I go back to London, it kind of feels foreign. You're there for 2 weeks, and I'm ready to come back. So, you know, it's just as humans, we adapt to our surroundings. So, you know, the same with my parents. You know, they come and visit here, and they want to go back to London. You know, and I don't get it sometimes. I'm like, why do you want to go back there? But that's their home. So I think it's where you are becomes home.
Yeah. And that's used to be an old saying, you know, home is where the heart is, you know, and where your heart's there, that's what you want to be. That's where you want to be, right?
Right.
Yeah. Let's talk just a little bit about leading worship and about some of your experiences.
Yeah.
And so when you know you're going to lead, particularly on let's just say a Sunday morning, how do you prepare for that? What steps do you go? I mean, there may be, I know we have quite a few young worship leaders.
Sure.
What do you do to get your heart ready?
Yeah.
And to get all the way back to the song list, to, you know, to actually doing the worship?
Yeah.
What does that process look like for you?
Well, you know, the worship starts on a Monday. You know, it's a lifestyle, and obviously we're human. We're not perfect. Things happen in the week that can make you far away from God or further away from God, and it's an awareness of that, a realization of that, not to lose that consciousness of that first. The first thing is, you know, the Holy Spirit. I know it can move in the moment, but it also can move in preparation. And we prepare the songs we're going to sing. You know, that the church really thinks it through. What's the message about? How are we going to fit things together? And, you know, my part is I've got to make sure I'm prepared because I want to bring my best. Even if I know the songs, I still want to make sure I'm prepared, you know, spiritually, physically, emotionally, every part of it. So it's, you know, not leaving it to the last minute, because it's, you know, Sunday is really the first day of the week, really, even on a calendar. And it's like, you know, we talk about bringing our first 10% of tithe. Well, I want to bring my first 10% of time and my first 10% of talent or whatever God has given you to do. And so it's, putting that first. What does that look like? Well, making sure you're prepared, making sure that, I know that I'm bringing my best to his house.
Yeah.
Musically, what I'm going to say in between the songs, and being intentional in all of those moments. And
so what is there some spontaneity in what you do, or is it pretty much you've heard from the Lord before you get up there?
No, I think it's a combination of both. I think it's kind of like, when you plan your message, I'm sure you have to study and prepare, but I also believe in the moment the Holy Spirit will speak to you too. Right. And it's a combination of both. But it's like, we do all that we can do. God does everything he can do. And I think it's like, I personally wouldn't feel confident necessarily just spontaneously standing up on a stage and just, well, God, use me. Yes, he can. But I want to make sure I've done my part first in my preparation. So it's a combination of the two, that for me, I feel has been the best. And, I'm sure there are people who can probably just rock up and hold a guitar and do something. And there's been situations where I have, but it's a combination, I think, making sure that you're doing everything you can do in preparation.
I say the same thing about, giving a sermon, is that there, you got to be intentional. Yeah. Right? You got to do your homework, you got to study, you got to get ready. But you also balance that with being in the moment.
Yes. Spontaneous. Yeah.
And because, like you said, I mean, if you're prepared, you do what you know to do, but you're always submitted to whatever the Holy Spirit wants you to do. Yeah. I see that for sure. When you get up to lead worship, what's your objective? How long do you have? And what's your objective?
Yeah, I mean, the time frame that we have, at fellowship, it varies. It depends, and sometimes there may be moments where it's more spontaneous. But ultimately, you're preparing people's hearts, including your own, to receive the gospel, to receive the message. And, it's our prayer is that, and I'm sure pretty much every church is, that people come to know Christ. Yeah. And it's, how do we make sure that what we're doing is not a distraction and it's not a performance. I've had people say that was a great performance after church on Sunday, and it really annoys me because it's not a performance. It's we're leading people into God's presence, and that's the first and foremost, and we're praising him. It's kind of, we're saying thank you for everything. It's not a performance.
I had a guy come to me one time and say, that was a great speech.
Yeah. Right. There's a guy every Sunday that comes up to me and says, good luck. Yeah. I don't believe in luck. First, there's no such thing as luck, and but yeah, it's the reminding yourself that, yes, just because you're holding a guitar and you're on a pulpit or a platform, that you're not there to entertain people. I'm there to lead people into God's presence, and God's using me as a vessel, as an empty vessel, to bring that about. But you can't take people where you haven't been yourself. That's right. So it's like, if my private time of worship is, you can't out-worship or out-preach your life. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, I can't out-worship my private worship in my own home when no one's there. So how can I expect it to translate, when I'm in the church? So
it goes back to what you said at the beginning, that it is a lifestyle.
It's a lifestyle.
It's not a gig. It's not a deal. No, it's a lifestyle,
and it's something we respect, and it's something that's sacred. Stepping onto that platform and leading people into God's presence. It's something we get to do. Yeah. And it's not something we have to do. It's something we get to do, and it's being reminded of that. It's like, I'm so thankful that God is using me and the other people on the team to do what music was actually created for, first and foremost. Yeah, it's a lot of fun playing all my shows. That's how I make a living. It was fun being on TV and singing and whatever. But that is not what music was created for. Music was created to bring glory to God first and foremost. Now, I believe that, yes, all glory can be brought to God through all forms of creativity, but first and foremost, it is to bring glory to God. And it's being reminded of that, and it's, getting to lead worship on a Sunday is an honor. Yeah. And it's sacred, and it's something that should be treated.
This is so what I had hoped for in talking to you.
Sure.
Because this is what I think young worship leaders, young worship team members, they need to hear. They need to be a part of. Because if we're not leading people into the presence of the Lord, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's a show. It's a performance.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I'm always mindful of is those guys on the first 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rows, they came ready to worship, ready to be here. The majority of them had a fight with their wife on the way over, don't know the songs that you're singing, and the challenge is how do you present something that brings everybody into the presence of the Lord? Do you ever think about that?
Yeah, we do. I mean, at Fellowship, we talk about 3 chairs. You've got the non-believer, the new believer, and the maturing believer. And it's always being mindful of when we plan something, be it the message, be it the worship, be it everything that connects together, is it speaking to those 3 people? Because ultimately those 3 people are a example and representation of what is stepping into your building on a Sunday. And every week I meet people who are not Christ followers. Someone invited them, or they just attended, or there's a lot of new believers, or there's many mature believers. And it's making sure that it's something that can be understood, making the complex simple. How can it be how can everything be understood to all 3 types of people? Because I have been part of churches in the past where that thought process wasn't there, and it became like what we would call a holy huddle, where there was, if you did bring a friend, and I did bring a friend one time, and he never came back because it was just over his head. So it's finding that balance between, Jesus spoke in parables, so it could be understood by the common one. Everyone. Or he used technology. He went to the mountains to get the echo. So it's the same as today. It's just, that we use technology and we use tools and we use, the gospel doesn't change, but the way we present it has to connect with the culture or the culture, the time we're in.
It's not the style.
Right.
It's the substance.
Yeah.
And I remember one time meeting Leonard Ravenhill, and he was an old saint that was kind of a revivalist. He was actually a British guy and lived out here in Tyler.
Yeah.
But he one of the first meetings I went to ever with him, he said he opened up in prayer, had everybody get on their knees, opened up in prayer, and then he said, now we're going to have a season of worship. And he pulled out a hymn, a hymnal.
Yeah.
And began to read the hymn. Yeah. And weep and cry.
Yep.
And I realized and I learned that day, it is not the style. It is the substance of his lordship. You want to worship him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And trying to, reach all those 3 chairs. I know that's a challenge.
It is, yeah. So it's, mindful of if I'm going to say something between the songs, yes, there's some spontaneity, but I found having a direction, or as you say, an intention, has gone further and has had more impact than just necessarily off the cuff saying something. So being mindful of the people that are stepping into your church, because, I want those people to leave different from when they first walked in. And it's like, how do we make it in a way that everyone can understand?
Do you have a process of integrating new worship songs to the platform, to the church? Is there a process that you have for that?
No, I mean, we will just add them one weekend, and we just kind of sometimes we'll say, hey, this is a new song. Yeah. Sometimes we'll do it before the message, and it will be like an element, and it's a way of introducing something new. But I think introducing one at a time typically, I think, is what we've done. We won't introduce too many at once. Yeah. And then, it's just, that's pretty much it, know.
Let's talk a little bit about Joanna.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me about her.
Yeah, we met at a C3 conference in 2014. Yeah. So,
and C3 is a creative church
conference. Right. That's correct. So, churches, pastors come from all over I would say the world, actually. Yeah. Will be there and kind of hear from each other and, bounce off ideas and a lot of things that they can learn from each other and stuff. So that's where we met in 2014. And then
how did you meet?
Just there. She was working there, and they had a little group of us from London, and somehow they introduced us, and then it was long distance relationship for a year and a half or so. But in that time, I'd been hired by the church, and then was coming here. So I was leading the worship here at the Dallas campus, and we got married in 2015. So, yeah, you know, it's been nearly 10 years of marriage, 3 kids. And, you know, she's been my biggest supporter, you know, been my best friend, biggest supporter. And, you know, there's been times she's had to carry the weight of our family because of situations that happened with my health. Because I moved here in 2015. In 2016, I got diagnosed with Crohn's disease. It just came out of nowhere. And, you know, it's an incurable condition. And it's an invisible disease. You look normal, but you feel terrible. And it's... you literally every day are dragging your body. You don't have I don't have the energy I used to have, or a normal person. You know, I have less energy than my dad, you know, but you look normal. So it's not always understood. But she is, you know, has done a lot, you know, has carried the weight, you know, 3 kids, works full time. So yeah, I mean, supports me fully in the musical endeavors, you know, in the going on The Voice. She encouraged me to do it, you know, because I was like, how do I leave you guys for this long period of time? And as well as obviously, you know, she's in full-time ministry, so 100%, you know, supports and encourages, you know, me leading worship. So yeah, it's been very blessed to be married to her.
Well, 2024 was a huge year for you. Yeah. Last year, right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, we're filming this in April of 2025. But 2024, February, you have surgery, and they take your colon out. And by the end of the year, you're finalist on The Voice. You have to explain that to us. How did all that come down? I mean, obviously you're very sick there in the beginning of the year.
Yeah, it was, my wife got pregnant with our 3rd child, a daughter, it was the summer of 2023. And I noticed myself getting more and more unwell, more and more dizzy, really dizzy. And we did a trip to London, and I noticed I'd lost weight, but it looked good. I was like, had an 8-pack. I was like, kind of shredded. This is interesting. What happened, you know? And then I realized, kind of in that trip there, I started to feel more and more unwell. That you know, you start seeing blood. And I knew, oh, here we go. This disease is... I was in remission for 4 years up to that point. And I say remission, you don't feel amazing, but there was no, like, crazy symptoms. And I started seeing blood, and I knew, okay, this is bad. And it just got worse and worse and worse. And, you know, they give you steroids to try and stop them. Didn't work. First time, it never worked. Wow. And then they upped the dose of these infusions. Didn't work. So I pretty much... My wife's heavily pregnant at this point, and I'm very sick. I'm still doing gigs because that's how I make my income, and I'm still doing Sunday. And you're losing blood every day, pouring in, and you just feel awful. And it's hard to explain for someone who's never gone through that. It's like you're just very dizzy, very weak, but you still look normal. So I went to the gastroenterologist. Oh, you look great. Well, I feel terrible. Yeah. Because you're just getting sicker and sicker, and I pushed for the surgery because I had Crohn's only in the colon. You know, it's a Crohn's colitis. It's a certain type. So, you know, I pushed to, look, I want this out. They took the whole thing out, and they stitch everything up so you never can, you know. And for me, it was hanging on till that surgery. So this was in October, and I'm hanging on October, November, December, January, February. So 5 months being very unwell. Yeah. But that had started in like August, not knowing it was this. So it was like a good 6, 7, 8 months. So they removed the whole colon, rectum, everything in February of 2024. You spend a few days in hospital. It's very the pain because it's huge incisions into your body, and then I was pretty much bedridden for 6, 7 weeks. And my wife is very pregnant, like she's about to give birth. Wow! And she's working full time, and I'm on all kinds of painkillers. And then there was a few times I had blockages. Yeah. So food would get stuck in this system, and it's excruciating. It would take 8, 9 hours for it to pass. I mean, it's my gosh, pain like you've never had. You can't barely walk. You're really weak. And then I turned a little bit of a corner where I was able to get out of bed, and literally like that day or the next day she gave birth. but the midwife didn't get there in time.
Yeah.
So I was the midwife,
Oh,
mid-husband, whatever you want to call it. So I was there to catch, it was scary, catching the baby,
sure.
and like, she told me on the phone, we'll just put her on her chest and this and that. And it's, you know, it's, in the moment, it was very scary.
Sure.
But that was, you know, that was our third child. And then it was just a very, very slow recovery, very difficult recovery, because, you know, this system I have, it can wake you up multiple times at night. There's a bag and stuff. And then literally, I think it was a few days after the surgery, I got the call to say I'd made it on The Voice. They reached out to me when I started to get really sick. And, you know, they found a video of me on social media, and they said, we'd like for you to go on the show, but we need you to send 3 audition videos. And I was really sick. Yeah. So trying to film myself in a kind of setting without a microphone, it was tough. Like, I really didn't want to do it, but they kept pushing me. So I did it, and anyway, got the call that you're going to go on the show. Then the next thing was, well, how do I get ready quick enough to be recovered enough to do this?
Oh my God.
And then you know, your whole system's changed. You know, my voice had completely gone. I mean, it was like you had to kind of relearn how to sing in a way. I mean, maybe I'm being a bit too dramatic there, but it was not easy to suddenly start getting that muscle going. But I did everything I could to recover in time. And I think 6-7 weeks after the surgery, I did like my first show, my first gig, started leading worship back at church again. So started all of that up, but you still don't feel 100%. The disease has been, you know, diseased organs gone, but I still felt awful. Don't know, you know, it's a huge surgery. And anyway, so they fly you out to California, and I was there for 4 weeks, and that's where they make the first cuts of who gets on the show. So they probably fly out, I don't know, 120 people, and maybe 80 or 70 of them actually make the cut for the first audition. So when I went there, the song they gave me first, it went terrible in the rehearsal. And I thought, well, I'm going to get cut. And that night, my phone went off, and it was one of the producers calling me. And I'm like, oh, here we go. I'm going to get cut. Going home. And they said, we need to change the song. So they changed it to Put a Spell on You, the Joe Cocker version. And I think that's what gave me a better chance, because a lot of it's about song choice. You know, that song just allowed me to do what I could do, and the other song didn't, you know. And, you know, got through the first round, and, you know, you don't sleep well the night before.
So they dictated to you what the music was. You didn't get the...
It's kind of a combination of the two. They have an approved list, and as the competition goes on, you have more of a say because there's less people. It's all about getting rights for the songs. So, and ultimately, you know, it's a TV show, so it's certain songs they know translate better on television than others. So, yeah, I mean, they flew out my wife, my eldest son, and the baby. They couldn't bring everybody for the first audition. And, you know, the night before, you don't sleep very well because you feel like all your musical dreams are culminating in this moment. And we went out there and just closed my eyes. Imagine I was playing in one of these venues in Dallas, and that was it. You know, did the best I could. And you get through that round, and then they send you home for 2 weeks.
Is that second round, is that televised or no?
The first 3-4 rounds are pre-recorded. And then when you get to the live shows, it's live. So this was pre-recorded, and then came back home for a few weeks. Then they fly you out again, which they're shooting behind the scenes with Reba and all of that. And then after that, fly you back home again for another 2 weeks. And then they fly you back out again. And then it's the battles, knockouts, playoffs. So 3 more rounds, but each round takes 2 weeks because they give you a new song, you rehearse it, you do all the behind the scenes, then you do the actual performance. So 6 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
I'm in a hotel room for 6 weeks, away from my wife, away from my kids. It's a lot of fun. They look after you really well. Everyone there, the producers, the coaches, the band, I mean, the vocal coaches, everyone I met there was so supportive and amazing. They really look after everybody there. But I got through all of the rounds some way, somehow. And then, so that was a 6-week stretch. And then I was back home for 2 months. And that's when they start airing what they've recorded. So then you start to see all the comments on social media, and you start to, you know, new people find you and follow you. And at that, coming back, each time I was back in Dallas, I was back to doing all my gigs, and then Sunday at church. And then they fly you back out for the live shows and the final. So, you know, that was that process. You know, you had a first live show, and then there's something they had, the instant save, which they saved me in the last minute, and then the actual final, and then the results. So, yeah, it's a different level of nervousness. It's one of those things. It's easy to watch it from your couch, even as a musician, and go, "Yeah, that guy's not that good," or "I wouldn't have missed that note." Yeah, you would.
Yeah, that's right.
You would be shaking.
Yeah.
And it one of the rounds in particular, it felt like, I don't know if you've ever been in a dream and you're trying to throw punches and none of them land, and it's like you can't punch. That's how it felt. My body just could not sing. I couldn't hold the tune. I couldn't find the notes. I was missing notes. My body couldn't do it. No matter how much I tried to relax, it was like as if I'd never sung in my life, because of it's a very unique situation. It's live. People are screaming. The audience is so loud. You don't hear anything. And the level of nerves, it's unlike anything. I mean, I've done big shows here, you know, opening for well-known people and stuff, or opening C3 at our church, which is huge. The level of nerves is completely different on television. And me and my wife don't really watch these shows, but when we did, as a singer, you're critical. Oh, that guy, he missed a note there. Oh, he's not that good. No, he's probably really good. It's a very unique environment.
And you get the intersection of music choice, you know, of talent level. I mean, there's a bunch of things into this moment, right?
And then there's like, it's very dry there, the air. So for singing, a lot of people had problems. And here is humid. London, where I'm from, is humid. When you go there, within 2 or 3 days, your voice changes. And that's something I didn't know. And now when I watch that show, I know what they're going through. You're having to push so much more to reach the same note. And I, you know, I had thousands of comments of hate on Facebook, but none of these people know, like, you're up at 5 a.m. when you film, and you're waiting around, you know, hair, makeup. It could be 12 hours before they film, and they're thinking, oh, this guy just got out of bed at 11 a.m. No, we've been up since 5 a.m. We're exhausted, and now you're filming us, and you're judging my vocal with a dry mouth, with dry air, nerves, anxiety, not much sleep.
Oh my gosh!
And it's a lot of fun, but it's tough. It's a lot more difficult than it looks. And I saw so many amazing singers not make it or not get a chair turn, that if you brought them here, they would blow you away. It's just a very different environment. A lot of fun and everything, but it's very different to, like, just getting up on any stage and singing. And you hear stories of famous artists who tried out 7, 8 times. One of the mega mentors they brought in, and she's a huge country star. She was telling us she tried out for the show 7 times and never got on. But the irony is that she came as like a mentor. Superstar. Yeah.
Man, that's because you're right. When you're watching on TV, it seems like it's in real time. But it's really not.
No. The live shows, you know, are, but it's a lot more difficult than it looks. And my wife and parents came to the final, the finale, and my dad was shocked at how loud the room is, because they have people there, like, making it loud. So you don't even hear yourself. But you can hear it on TV, but in the room, it's just, you don't even know. Was I in tune? Was I in key? Was I just hope I was, you know?
Amazing. And then how was your interaction with the judges? I mean, I want to get to Reba last, but how about did you get to meet the rest of them, hang out with them?
Definitely, I mean, they were all so friendly, all really nice. And you know, Michael Bublé follows me on social media, as does Reba. It's nice because he'll like most of my posts. So, they were all really friendly, really supportive. A lot of the stuff on camera, it's, you know, edited, so they don't show the whole interaction, but very down to earth. They really look after you. And the experience was far better than I could ever have imagined. You know, it's everyone was so humble and genuine, and it's a lot of fun.
So you had Luke, Gwen.
It's Michael Bublé, Gwen, Snoop Dogg, and Reba.
What was Snoop Dogg like?
Always high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard he has his own trailer where he kind of goes between.
I mean, pretty much. Yeah, no, he's always really friendly. I have a few pictures with him. He'd always give gifts because he has a lot of his own. He has his own like company, his own merchandise. So he'd just shower everybody with gifts.
Yeah.
So, came back with like a wine and a gin and a Snoop on the shelf kind of thing, and loads of stuff that I had to find a way to fit into my luggage. But yeah, really nice.
And how about Gwen? What was she like?
Yeah, as real friendly. She actually, I played at her husband's. He has a few music venues called Old Red, so I actually played at the one at his hometown, Tishomingo, Oklahoma.
Tishomingo,
Yeah, we played there, and it was nearly pretty much a sold-out show. Yeah. So people paid money to come.
That's Blake, right?
Yeah, Blake's place. So it was it was a lot of fun. Everyone was so nice. Yeah, Michael Bublé.
He got blocked.
Yeah, he got blocked. So yeah, that was. I don't know who I would have picked. I feel like my heart was kind of set on Reba. My head told me to pick Snoop because he blocked Michael, but I thought I have a higher chance of going further with Reba. I don't know. Yeah, really down to earth guy, real humble, real funny. He's a great singer, even better than you can imagine in real life.
Yeah, he's Canadian, right?
Yeah,
exactly. And then what about Reba? She seems like everybody's mom. I mean, she just seems like the nicest human.
Yeah, like an aunt, makes you feel very at home straight away. Great sense of humor, always smiling. I feel like I was able to make her laugh quite a lot. So yeah, very, very welcoming. A lot of good advice. And I remember when we rehearsed the song that we sang together, you could tell straight away, like, this is a different level of professional I'm singing with. I gotta raise my level. You can tell straight away, like, okay, this is someone who's been 40 plus years in the music industry at the top. And straight away, when she starts singing and you start working with her, okay,
there's something different about
this. There's something different here, and there's a reason why she is at where she is and has remained. Because it's one thing to attain it, but it's something else to retain it. And she's had a very long and successful career. So, yeah.
Did any of them talk to you about your faith, or?
I mean, a lot of the producers would ask questions. Obviously, the way the show's edited, we don't have control over what gets put in each episode. So, there wasn't much of what I said about my faith that I think actually made it onto television. I feel like, with each person, there's kind of a lane. And for me, it was the British guy who had a organ removed and family man. That was kind of the lane they had you in, because they do a lot of interviews, probably each hour's worth of footage that will be condensed into 10 seconds, and we don't know how it's gonna be put together. So I talked a lot about it. It didn't come to the surface in the editing so much, which I don't know why.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of guys there, a lot of people there lots been said in just a little bit of time. They when you're with the coaches, you're there with them 30 minutes, 45 minutes, but that will be condensed into 2 minutes. So, a lot of the jokes and stuff probably don't make it to the TV. Exactly. How is your experience with the voice? And you ended up a finalist.
Yeah, fourth place.
You were in fourth place.
Yeah.
How has your life changed, or has it changed? How does this impact you, your marriage, your family, your job, your ministry? How does all this impact you?
I think the main thing that I've noticed is now people come to my shows specifically. We've had 3 sold-out ticketed shows, which was unthinkable before. And now every time I'm playing somewhere, people specifically come to watch you and see you. It's a mild level of fame, should I say. I read it somewhere that's like you're a D-list celebrity if you've been on reality TV. I thought it was like J-list or K-list or something further down, but apparently it's D-list. So, in North Park Mall, you get people coming up to you. Not everyone watches the show, so if someone doesn't watch the show, they wouldn't know. But definitely, you see growth on social media and all of the platforms and stuff. But everyone else who knows me before, I'm still the same. Danny to them, and it's family-wise, it was just the same. You know, my wife Joanna encouraged me to do it, and I know it was tough for her being away for so long. And you know, I think it just enables you to meet more people. You know, we had a show the other day at the Grandscape, which is, you know, I play there once or twice a year, and this time around it was packed with people coming to see you. So, you know, in that sense, it's been a blessing to have that opportunity, because before that wasn't the case. Nobody really knew who you were, and now people are specifically seeking to come to your shows. And yeah, you know, they'll come up after and they'll talk to you and want pictures, and you know, and some want autographs, and you know, it's a lot of fun. You know, so yeah, it's been positive. Yeah. There was a side of it, you know, that there was a lot of hate. I say hate, a lot of bad comments you read on Facebook specifically. I think it's just a lot of old angry people. So that was, I had to get used to that, and I think I got the most hate on my season. Everything from the mustache to the hair to the hate the way he sings and all this. So, you know, it was tough reading that, because I didn't expect that going into it.
Well, you know, Jerry Jones, who owns the Dallas Cowboys, said any publicity is good publicity.
Right, yeah. I think when I got picked to go to the final from the Instant Save, there was like a news outlet that published an article on Facebook. There was literally like 975 comments of saying how much they hated me. How did he get picked, and blah, 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 blah. So it was tough reading all that, you know, but
you did read it.
I read it, and they told me not to. My wife kept telling me to stop reading the comments, but it was tough. It was a lot of love too, lot of love too, but there was also a lot of negative too. But I had to just delete Facebook, because Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, 95%, it's complimentary. People were nice. So you just had to know that was part of the journey. It's hard when you read that many times people saying you can't sing, it's terrible, and then you're going on stage to sing, and all that's in your head, subconsciously. So that was something I was not prepared for. If I could have gone back in time, I would have definitely not have read Facebook at all. Because I think it subconsciously affected the way I sung, and I actually think I got worse kind of as it went along, because I was reading the comments. It actually affects your confidence, and a lot of singing is confidence, and the last few rounds, I definitely lost a lot of confidence because of reading stuff that if I went back in time, it's like, and I would advise someone, don't read it. Don't look at it. You know, these people are.
Well, it's kind of a catch-22, because you want to build your social accounts, right? I mean, you want those to grow and build for your influence. But who wants to read hate mail?
I know.
I mean, so.
Yeah, the funny one was all the likeness, you know, people likened me to every guy you can imagine with a dark mustache. And then they're like, oh, his hair's a wig. And I'm like, no, it's all real. But I realized on television, because, you know, I use hairspray and stuff, they're like, it's a wig. And it's like, no. But it hit me like, maybe it does look like that on TV, you know. So that, and then, is he in disguise, or is his mustache? I think my favorite one was, does his barber have a guide dog? That was my favorite one. I just laughed at that because it was funny, you know. But you know, in hindsight, it was a great experience, and I would recommend it if anyone has an opportunity to do it, because, you know, I met some amazing people. A lot of the contestants there, you know, still friends to this day. Vocal coaches I had there were awesome, amazing, and getting to know the coaches and everything. They really look after you, and they really care about everyone who's on that show. They treat you really well.
I'm glad to hear that. While you were going through that process, what was your relationship with the Lord like? I mean, you got 4 weeks, 2 weeks, just without your family there in the hotel. What was going on there with you and the Lord? How was that going?
I mean, it's definitely difficult not going to church, and that was the longest stretch I think ever that I wasn't able really to physically be in church. So there was that side of it. Thankfully, there was a lot of believers there, and we actually did go to a church nearby some of the weeks that we were able to go on a Sunday, depending on the schedule. So, you know, God's put you in a position like that, and you just got to remind yourself who you are and whose you are, and just remain an example, you know, around people who don't believe in Christ. And, you know, people are looking at you, and as you call yourself Christ follower, people need to see that you're different. And it's, you know, just setting boundaries. You know, it's like, you know, they actually have a curfew to make sure everyone's in bed by 11, which is good. You know, making sure you have those boundaries and, you know, abide by them, and making sure I'm still an example, you know, representing myself, my family, my faith, my church, while I'm in somewhere like that. And you just got to make sure that you are intentional with the time. There's a lot of downtime. So, you know, it's a lot of downtime that you can choose to spend, you know.
Do you keep a journal? Did you?
I have before. It's hard for me to maintain it.
Me too.
You know, that's the hard thing. There's been seasons where I have, and it's kind of cringe when I pick up that same book and I read it back, and I was like, what was I thinking writing that? But it's, but no, I don't.
Yeah, I've done. You know, what does this even mean? I'm not even sure what I was thinking. Yeah, exactly.
So I've gone through seasons. I haven't for a while, but maybe it's something I should look into again.
Danny, what's your ambition? What's your spirit? And I mean this spiritually. What is your spiritual ambition? What do you want God to do with your life?
I just hope He continues to do what He's doing, and the opportunities that He's given me to lead worship every Sunday, the opportunities He's given me to do something I love, music, and be able to provide for myself and my family through that. You know, my obviously first love is Jesus, but you know, second to that is music, and my family, but third to that is music. That's what I do. And to continue doing what I'm doing. And, you know, I believe that God always will open the right doors at the right time, and that you can be an influence wherever you are in that. And in this season, it's this. The previous season was The Voice, you know. Seasons before that was in London. So it's, you know, just being attentive to God, and as He opens doors, you walk through them, and as He shuts doors, then, you know, it's, you know, time to recalibrate. But, you know, I'm thankful that I'm able to do what I love and provide for my family through what I love, you know, because before I was doing that, I was in real estate. And I didn't love it, even though it was a lucrative career. It's not something that my heart was.
That's what I was going to say. If you hadn't have met Joanna, you'd be selling houses. In London.
Exactly. And you know, it had its perks and it was fun, but it was not where my heart was. You know, and the same thing. You know, I went to law school and I studied law, even though my passion was music. You know, could have pursued that career, but my heart wouldn't have been in it. So I'm thankful that I'm doing something that my heart is in. You know, like. Tomorrow night, I have a little show. Saturday night, we're playing at the Fort Worth Food and Wine Festival. It's a blues festival. Sunday, I'm leading worship in my church. You know, so for me, I'm just very thankful that I get to do what I love. And, you know, it's been a real blessing.
It's a blessing from the Lord, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm so glad you came today, Danny. Thanks for being with us. It's been an amazing conversation, amazing time.
Likewise.
And I want to thank all of you for joining us during this podcast. Thank you for being with us. If this is the kind of content that you like, then I'd love it if you take just a moment to check the like, and also maybe subscribe, because our heart's desire is to bring you this kind of content, this kind of conversation that'll be a blessing to you. And so thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
It's been great.
Thank you for
having me. Great having you. God bless you.
God bless you too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us.
Thank you.